Hey guys, we're here in Fairbanks, Alaska at Mark Whiffley's tiny house, the Midnight Sun tiny house. Let's go check it out. Would you say that this is probably the most northern tiny house?
Well, I think it is, yeah. Talked to a few people in the area that are considering building tiny houses, but I don't know of anybody that has actually yet. I mean, I started getting interested in tiny houses years ago, but I lived on boats for several years when I lived in southeast Alaska. And I just loved the tiny spaces, and especially like the way boats use space so well. And so when I moved here to Fairbanks, I kind of missed that tiny space. And so I started looking around for tiny house sort of designs. I came up with this design and then went to some of the tiny house conferences, one last year and then the one this year, just to continue to get ideas. It's just more, for me, a passion about living sort of small footprint kind of lifestyle, living sustainably. I have a big garden where I grow a lot of my food. So I try to maintain a small footprint. And I have this place on my own property, and I rent my big house, my log home, to Airbnb guests through the rest of the year. So it allows me to put this place, my tiny house, on my own property. I have electrical hookup to my studio and my shop, so I have full-time electricity. This is still a work in progress. And I'm kind of just finishing it as my time allows. I'm busy with traveling for the summer, actually year round. I travel a lot for my work. I work full time at the university, so I teach at the university, and then do pottery as a hobby. So I do a lot of that. It takes up a lot of my spare time as well. So I've just taken my time to try to do all the details really well, so it looks nice. It's actually 8 feet wide by 13 feet tall. To the roof line. It's 20 feet long, and so what is that, 160 square feet with the loft? I figure it's a 200 square foot place. It's really super well insulated, so that was one of the sort of tricks for me, was to try to understand or figure out how to build a place that could stand really extreme temperature ranges from, I mean, we could get temperatures down to 40, 50 below here in interior Alaska, all the way up to 100 degrees. In the summer. So
it's 150 temperature change.
150 degree temperature change from winter to summer. It's 2x4 framing, just like you described, with the foam packed in all the 2x4 spaces. And then I was very sort of anal, careful about getting all the cracks filled. So I was just really careful about getting every last little crack sealed up. And then after I finished that, then I put a half-inch layer of foam on the inside of the entire structure, and then an additional 1-inch foam on the outside attached to the the outside of the 2x4 stud. So it has a total of 3.5, 4.5, 5 inches of foam. I actually restored a couple of boats years ago, big boats, and I used this artist canvas. It's hard to see. It's actually sort of a cream colored, this is a standard artist canvas, painter's canvas. But I use that on the ceiling of some of the boats, and it just looks beautiful, and it's super tough. And it's cheap, and it's inexpensive, I should say. And it's light. So I thought, well, I'm going to try to add some of that to this place. So I just put that actually on most of the front wall. So this is all artist canvas here, and then that panel over there. And then I've got a panel back here. So the stuff weighs practically nothing. Super easy to work with. You can paint on it. I actually had a design painted on that, and I thought, at first I liked it, and then as I looked at it longer, I thought, no, I don't like it anymore. So I just painted over it, and I kept coming up with colors or trying colors until I got something I really like. So I wanted something fairly bright, sort of natural colors, earthy colors, without being sort of dull. So I like sort of blues and yellows and orange and red. I went through the same process of trying to figure out how I can make a nice looking countertop relatively easily, that's lightweight, relatively lightweight, and just again, wasn't going to cost an arm and a leg. So plywood is all it is, and it's birch plywood, so it's relatively inexpensive. I bought this a 4x8 sheet for, I think it was $50. Again, ripped it on my table saw. And just laid it in place, and I laid down a heavy coating of that I guess it's called the countertop lacquer. It's a 2-part epoxy that's specifically made for countertops, and it's super durable. I think it looks nice. It really brings out the grain in the wood. So I've got the electric cooktop, of course the microwave and crock pot are electric, and then my electric water heater. And then, like I said, I heat it with just a small electric heater. So it's all electric, and so far it seems to be working out really well. I do have actually a full-size refrigerator, and so this is going to be the spot for the refrigerator. I have a small water tank, just getting it hooked up. It's a 35-gallon, and that plumbing too was all sort of a learn as I go kind of thing. Talking to a lot of tiny house people that have built their tiny houses and what's worked for people and what hasn't. So yeah, 35-gallon water tank, which will supply. I don't use a lot of water. I tend to be kind of a low water use person. I take very short showers and don't use a lot. In fact, I collect a lot of my rainwater for my domestic use. I don't drink it, but I use that just to for just some basic domestic water.
Well, let's go ahead and check out the bathroom.
There's not much to see yet. I've got the separate toilet. It actually has a basin in there that spins every time you sit on it, so it spins part way, and you can actually hear it. So the door opens, the trap door opens here when you put pressure on the toilet seat when you're sitting on it, and that actually spins the canister down there as you use the toilet. And then the urine goes to the front, and that drains into a separate unit, either a holding tank or into the gray water system, depending upon how you want to plumb it. Yeah, so the plan is to, actually I got the idea from you guys in your tiny house when I was down in Portland, is to use that corrugated metal, actually similar to what I have on the outside of the house, but that's going to be on all the walls here in the shower, and then along this wall here as well. And then I'll of course just have a standard shower curtain. I built this basin here for the catching the water, and it's not even in place yet, but it's just again, it's just wood, plywood, and I'm going to coat it both underneath and on the inside, the top, with marine epoxy, 2-part epoxy. Another sort of experiment for me is having a space that was big enough to feel comfortable, that you can move around and sit up, and so it's just tall enough where I can actually sit up there and read, but yet it's small enough that it doesn't take up. I mean, it doesn't take up a lot of kitchen space. So I made it the ceiling in the kitchen here tall enough so people that are 6'3" can easily walk through there without ducking. But yeah, so it's high enough to provide good space in the kitchen, but low enough that I still have enough room in the loft without exceeding the 13 or 13 and a half feet of maximum height for moving it down the highway. So I just built a little holder, a little frame for my iPad, and it just slips in there. And while you're laying in bed, there's your iPad right in front of your face. So
nice.
I get a lot of laughs out of people when they see my iPad on my ceiling.
So do you plan on adding furniture, like a couch?
Yeah, there'll be a couch. Actually, I'm still working on designs. I like some of the designs I've seen in boats where the couch will actually slide out into a double bed. It'll either fold up or be out of the way when I don't want it. So that's the only thing I'm going to add, in addition to a small table, It's going to be a birch countertop table here that will fold up, so it'll come out about here. And this is going to be a reading nook, which I use already for my clothes, but also hanging out and doing some reading and working on my computer. So this will be a table here where I can work and eat, and then if the couch is folded down, you can sit on the couch too and use the table.
Right, so you used a standard size door for your design, yeah?
Yeah, I did. I looked at smaller doors, but they're really expensive, and I didn't have. I've seen people build their own door and they look beautiful, but I just didn't have the time. Living in Fairbanks, it's hard to get sort of specialty items. We're really limited to what Lowe's and Home Depot carries, and I think it looks okay, but it's not as beautiful as some of the really nice doors that people.
Well, because you built out over the wheel wells, you have that extra space that you can.
That's right.
You can have the bigger door.
Right.
You know, it doesn't look unproportional in any way. You know.
Yeah, well, that's what I like about it. It's big enough you can get in and out and get furniture, or refrigerator, or whatever in and out without.
Yeah, that's true. You still have to get your fridge in, right? Your 6 foot tall fridge.
I wanted it fairly modern looking, but I also wanted it super durable. So the metal corrugated siding is really, really durable stuff. It's a little bit more difficult to work with because you gotta use a metal cutter to get all around some of the joints that are kind of tricky to get just right. But once you kind of figure out how to work with it, it's not too bad. So it's super durable stuff, and it should hold up for years without any maintenance. And then it's cedar trim that I've treated with exterior varnish, of course, and then this is just simple exterior plywood. It's pretty good grade plywood, but I painted that, gave it a good couple layers of primer, and then painted that with exterior paint.
You actually have a detachable porch here, correct?
Right. So I just built this as a separate standalone unit, so I could just hook the tiny house up to my truck right now and drive away, and the deck would stay here.
Well, I have to ask, because you teach climate change at the university here, right?
That's right.
Do you have any thoughts on how, if people lived in tiny houses, any statement you'd like to say? Or?
Well, I don't know if I really have a statement per se, but I do like the feeling of living a low-impact lifestyle. And whether it be living in a tiny house, living on a boat, driving a relatively economical car, or biking instead of driving to work, which I bike a lot to work, or just in gardening. I grow a lot of my own food, and I fish and hunt a lot, so a lot of my food comes from the land, and very sustainably. So whether it be tiny house building or just that sort of lifestyle of feeling like you're doing the right thing, or trying to reduce your impact on the environment is what I try to do. And I think you can achieve that with a tiny house. It's a small footprint and don't use up a lot of resources relative to a big home. So.
Thank you so much for taking us through the Midnight Sun tiny house.
You're welcome.
I can't wait to see what it looks like when it's all finished this fall. Definitely this fall, right?
That's the goal. We're gonna keep on it. I always seem to set unrealistic goals, but we're gonna keep trying. So yeah, fall is the goal.
Okay. Well, thank you, and until next time, see you guys later.